Hey everyone, this is Paul Gale from PaulGaleNetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game news. It is May 13th, 2021, and these are the top stories of the day. To kick things off, we have a cool video to check out from Xbox over on their YouTube channel. It is celebrating 20 years of Xbox. Let's watch it together, shall we? There's that OG Xbox startup, which you can now have as your background on Xbox Series X. E3, where it all began, I remember that. Bill Gates and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on stage. It's cool times.
At Xbox, our passion is to help you find and play the games that you love.
You know, I love the art form of video games. I think we tell stories that bring people together, whether it's competing or whether it's cooperative. This is just what gaming should be about.
Adaptive controller, still fantastic. That commercial is one of my favorite commercials in gaming, I think, when they unveiled the adaptive controller. One of my top ones. Really awesome. Hashtag Xbox 20. You know, that's pretty cool. That was a good trailer. A couple of things to talk about in it. Let's see. Let's find a good spot to pause. Get a good logo or something. There we go. That's good. The OG Xbox logo. You know, Xbox came at an interesting time in the video game industry because, you know, the generation prior introduced PlayStation, and of course before that it was pretty much a Nintendo versus Sega battlefield, right? We had NES and Master System, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis. There were other players, of course, before. You know, if you look at Intellivision, ColecoVision, Magnavox, Odyssey, Atari, and TurboGrafx 16, even during that 16-bit era, 3DO, Panasonic. But overall, you know, late 80s to mid-90s, it was a Nintendo versus Sega battlefield. Then we got Nintendo, Sega, and PlayStation. Of course, Sony did a really good job entering the market. And, you know, some people think of that as old school and Xbox as the new guy on the market, which at the time, you know, in 2001, they were new. But now it's been 20 years. Xbox has now been around longer in the video game industry than, you know, anybody aside from Nintendo or Sony in terms of hardware manufacturing for X amount of years, because, you know, Atari didn't make game consoles for as long, even though they were out, you know, earlier in time. They came and they went, and then they went into, you know, software development and such. But Xbox is now the third longest consistent developing video game manufacturer, and kind of props to them, right? I think they've had a good stance in the industry. They came out with a pretty aggressive marketing campaign, you know, saying that their machine was more powerful than PlayStation 2, that their controller was better, that they had a hard drive, that they had, you know, online internet gaming. You can make arguments whether the controller was better or not than what the PlayStation 2 was at the time. The Duke controller, you can see Microsoft's involvement in the Dreamcast and the Duke controller kind of taking a little bit of an evolution on that. I wouldn't say it was the best controller at the time. If anything, I would say that in that era in particular, for me personally, I thought that the Nintendo GameCube controller was the most comfortable, the most ergonomic feeling. But Xbox started something different, and then they quickly went to the Xbox, you know, Type S controller, and that one kind of really set the stage of what Xbox would be as a controller brand for many years to come. And, you know, Xbox brought with it a brand new franchise in Halo. It had the 4 controller ports on the front like GameCube. It had a DVD player. As I mentioned earlier, it was the first system to have a hard drive built in, and that was a pretty big deal. You could buy memory cards for additional storage if you wished. You know, you could have Rumble technology in the controller. You could play gaming online via high-speed internet. Halo was big, very big at the time. The system debuted with some other titles like Cameo Elements of Power. Of course, it got grabbed by the Ghoulies. At the time, the Rare acquisition was still pretty new, so you had the Conker's Bad Fur Day remake and such. I'd say that Rare, it was in an interesting standpoint because they just got acquired by Xbox and they were just starting to see what should we do with this, new company being on Xbox. What games do we bring over? What new IP do we start to create? But that was a big moment in gaming. You could say now, looking back on the 20 years, unfortunately, I don't think Rare has done nearly as much as I would have hoped, but, Xbox was a start. Overall, they made a good place in the market. Not big enough to dent seriously into what Sony did. Sony, PS2 was by far the market leader in terms of overall shares, 150 million compared to Xbox, Nintendo, low 20s. But it was all right. Xbox had a decent start, and they went on only 4 years later to come out with the Xbox 360 in 2005. So Xbox barely lasted 4 years, but the 360 actually was, Microsoft's most successful console to date. Of course, they had a couple of different SKUs when they came out, and that system, it unfortunately had its red ring of death. But, with the refresh, with the black, more slim model, the system went on to selling, 86 or so million consoles. It lasted on the market from 2005 until the Xbox One came out in 2013. So that had an 8-year span and had a lot of solid games. Of course, Gears of War debuted on Xbox brand. We had a Perfect Dark game, and Xbox 360, I wish, did more with Perfect Dark. I wish Perfect Dark wasn't stagnant for this many years, but it's okay. We ended up getting, the HD version of the title. Xbox didn't suffer from losing out on any main exclusive games. The 360 era had plenty of heavy hitters to compete alongside PlayStation 3. You had the Final Fantasies and the Grand Theft Autos, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Assassin's Creed. Old franchises were coming out on Xbox 360. New IP was coming out. Some exclusives were coming out. Like I said, Halo and Gears of War shined quite a bit on 360, and it was a good system. And Xbox One, of course, came out, kind of hit a little bit of a problem in the road there with the debut, DRM issues, certain talks of online always, and then they kind of, dialed it back, but came out with a system that overall had a pretty healthy lifespan. If you look at 2013's Xbox to 2020, Xbox Series X, the Xbox One family of systems lasted 7 years. Should they have gone with Kinect 2 at launch? Probably not. In hindsight, they're looking, as this all-in-one machine, but with other things coming out like Amazon and Google and their Echo devices and so forth, it just became more practical for people to go there instead of, having their Kinect as their all-in-one home source of entertainment and talking, controlling TV and stuff. But it was still useful. The Xbox One had interesting functionality, having that HDMI in that you could use another system to connect to. So that was pretty cool. Kinect was pretty successful for them. Kinect 2, not so much. The controllers kept evolving along the way, though. I got to give major props to Xbox for the adaptive controller. That thing is, like I said, such an important piece of gaming, and it's kind of surprising that it took that long for one of the big three, or anyone really before the big three, to come out with something designated that anybody could use, but really kind of catered to gamers with a disability, with a little bit difficult of a time with these fine motor control skills with their thumbs and fingers. So that's a beautiful thing that Microsoft did. So I love that. I think they've handled IP pretty well during the Xbox One era. I think they're making big moves with Xbox Series X and S, coming out with 2 SKUs at launch. 2 very different SKUs, not just like, oh, this one's got a little bit more hard drive space, but no, like this is a higher end model for $500, a cheaper model that does less, digital only for $300. It's a pretty bold move, and I think in the long run, Xbox Series brand will do better than Xbox One. Of course, I got to give Xbox props also for controller innovations, having back pedals on their Elite controller. Their controller has slowly evolved, little bit by little bit, doing well. Still sticking to batteries. You could say that's a pro or con, but you could get rechargeable if you wish. Overall, though, it's been solid for Microsoft. Game Pass, definitely a big step up in terms of gaming and the value you get for it. If you think about, I want to own my games, well, you could kind of have your cake and eat it too with Game Pass. You could play all the new games you want at launch for very affordable because you're part of the subscription platform. And then a couple years later, if you want to own that title forever, then buy it when it's cheap, right? Digital or physical. So play it early now for little to no money, depending on how you look at your subscription and how you divide it across everything. And then buy the game later on if you want to own it forever. So Game Pass is a pretty smart platform. And overall, I'm looking forward to what Xbox has to do. I'm thankful that I have an Xbox Series X. I am thankful that I am going to get my beloved Perfect Dark franchise back, probably in 2022 or 2023, more likely the latter, a new entry. Looking forward to seeing what Halo Infinite's like later this year, the new Gears games, more stuff from Coalition in time. So overall, a solid last 20 years. Congratulations, Microsoft. Congratulations, Xbox. Here is to another 20 to come, and keep doing well, keep innovating. I am interested to see, I should say, what comes next after this system. All right, moving on. This is interesting news. Koei Tecmo announced today that they are interested in doing more Musou-style games, which are the Warriors hack-and-slash beat-em-ups. We've seen them have their original content, such as Samurai Warriors 5, and we've seen them cross over into Nintendo territory with Hyrule Warriors and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And now we've learned that they would like to do next, potentially, a Mario game or a Star Wars title. Excuse me. As soon as I finished playing Hyrule Warriors on Wii U, I thought I would love to see Mario next. Mushroom Kingdom, all of these Goombas, fairly low in terms of overall geometry and realism looking models with these Goombas and Koopalings that you could have hundreds on screen pretty easily, and they could look pretty good because they're not sophisticated models in terms of all of these digits, and they don't have to look photorealistic or anything like that. They're cartoon little polygon characters, and not to say that that's bad. It's just it's just less demanding than real humans making those on the screen. And I thought, wow, swinging around a chain shop, just going crazy on these. Playing as Princess Peach and having just this horde of toads come behind you for a special attack and have this epic battle with the toads and the Goombas. Mario, Luigi play as Bowser and just get big and fire breath across everything. Go through different kingdoms, your typical ice and desert, lava, green hills, go into space, do something there. I thought Mario would be great, and that was several years ago that I had that thought. Of course, nothing ever came of it. We got a Fire Emblem one, which was cool. We got another Hyrule Warriors one, Zelda, Age of Calamity, like I said. That was a great one. But Mario would be sweet. So the fact that they want to do it makes me happy that it might happen one day. And a Star Wars one is also very fitting. Nothing beats lightsaber and beating up droids or stormtroopers, and you could just wreak havoc there. If they have anything that's taken place in space at some battle stations, maybe some of them are even ship controlled for a special, perhaps. I don't know, hard to say, but there's a lot that you could do with Mario or Star Wars. So here's hoping that one or both of those things come true. Moving on in video game news, I realized that we talked a lot about Xbox in the beginning, but I thought that was fitting, so hopefully you didn't mind. moving on, like I said. We got a little tweet from Good Morning America today that gave us a little bit of a tease of Katy Perry. I watched it earlier. It's kind of short. I'm going to play it now for you.
That song will be featured on the upcoming Pokemon 25, the album. It's a whole album celebrating the 25th anniversary of the popular...
Try not to talk too much while other words are going on. But you get it. Not a whole lot to go off of other than, it seems to be a slower paced song. I'm sure it'll have some uplifting moments here and there. But there's electric. There's a little bit of a sneak peek. I would like it to be kind of poppy and high paced, faster, but we'll see if it's a nice, pleasant song, and if it does well on the radio, then hey, like I said in the video from the other day, anything that gets Pokemon some positive attention, all for it, because I want my franchises that I love to last for a long time. Next up, I chose this image, but this is actually a rumor, and I am ecstatic if it's true. Apparently, Nintendo's EPD studio, which is their Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development Studio, known as EPD Tokyo, is working on a brand new Donkey Kong game for Nintendo Switch. Different rumors are suggesting that it could be a grand 3D world game, such as Super Mario Odyssey, which would be the first for Donkey Kong in quite a few years. Donkey Kong 64 came out way back in the day for the Nintendo 64, and it was a fun title. It wasn't as tight, I would say, as Banjo-Kazooie or as Super Mario 64. It was bigger in some aspects, literally more characters to play as, a greater world in the sense of terrain to move around about, but mechanically speaking, I would say that probably Super Mario 64 felt tighter, or Banjo-Kazooie was a little bit more polished. But Donkey Kong 64 was still a really good game. It was still a lot of fun. So much tech has, improved in the last 20 plus years that I would love to see Nintendo's EPD team that handled Mario Odyssey handle a 3D Donkey Kong game. I think it could look breathtaking. There's such a good look to Donkey Kong, Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, the Kremlings, King K. Rool. They have such an iconic look to them, and their worlds are so lush. Their jungles, their waters, everything about Donkey Kong has always had a really good vibe. The 3 Donkey Kong games, Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3 on the Super Nintendo, were brilliant by Rare. I think that Retro Studios did equally as good of a job, in some places a little bit better perhaps, than the original Rare trilogy when Retro Studios handled Donkey Kong Country and this image, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, for Wii and Wii U respectively. Of course, they got David Wise back on for some music. If Nintendo's internal group, EPD Tokyo, is handling this, I think that they would be just as competent as Retro Studios or Rareware back in the day to create a Donkey Kong game. To be on the safer side, I'd say that a new 2D or 2.5D game would be a smash hit in terms of just a quality title that fans would love. They would come up with basically a brand new 2D Mario Donkey Kong platformer, right? We haven't had a new 2D Donkey Kong platformer since Country Tropical Freeze. We haven't had a new Mario 2D platformer since New Super Mario Bros. Wii U. And to see something new from Nintendo in that 2D plane market, that's not a Yoshi game, which is still a 2D platformer, or a Kirby game, but like a little bit more mature, harder hitting platformer that usually Mario and Donkey Kong are known for, that would be awesome. And that's a safer game to go with. But I kind of want a 3D one, because I think a 3D one's going to have the bigger market appeal. It's going to look bigger from a commercial standpoint. It feels bigger having a 3D roaming around game. That seems like a holiday title that, wow, you could win people over with visuals. If you have a 2-player mechanic, that would be great. Of course, it's easier to make a 2D game have a 2-player mechanic on it, or 4-player mechanic, but you could still make it work with 3D, of course. You could have them tethered together. You could have it online, so you don't have to worry about split screen interference. I'm okay with either 2D, 2.5D, or 3D. But I'm hoping for a 3D open, big, awesome world. But we'll see. It's still a rumor for now, but I will keep you posted if we hear more of it. Moving on, we had some Xbox talk, we had some Nintendo talk, now we got some PlayStation talk. Sony revealed this morning 2 new controller colors coming to PlayStation 5. We got our DualSense Midnight Black, looking pretty slick, and Cosmic Red. That Cosmic Red is a nice red. Not my favorite red, but a pretty nice looking red. That Cosmic Black, I think a lot of people will enjoy. That Midnight Black, I think, is what a lot of people were hoping the PlayStation 5 controller would be originally. I like the white and black that I do have, but I do think that this all black one is pretty slick and is kind of what a lot of people wanted. It's good to see Sony early in the PlayStation 5 life cycle already start to have a couple of controller options, you know? I think Xbox last generation did the best job with their, Xbox One controller online shop where you could customize things and stuff like that. I think that, PlayStation does a pretty good job as the years go by with different controller options. I think Nintendo did a good job with the Joy-Con color options, but I do wish that they did something more with the Pro Controller. Like, there isn't just a standard all yellow, all red, all blue, all green Pro Controller out there officially from Nintendo. You do have your third-party options that you could take, yeah, but I really like the feel and the quality and all that the Pro Controller serves. It's not missing in any category. It's got the high battery, 44-hour life. It's got the HD rumble. It's got the ability to read Amiibo, wireless, really good. Maybe update the D-pad a little bit, but overall the D-pad's still fine for things like Street Fighter that I play with it often. It's just aside from the special, collector's editions, Xenoblade Chronicles here, Monster Hunter there, all you have from Nintendo is black for the Pro Controller. They really put their focus on all of these Joy-Cons. So I would like to see them pick it up for the Pro Controller. Xbox is already doing good things with Xbox One controllers, now PlayStation 5 on top of it with 2 new PS5 DualSense looks, and they're pretty sweet. I might pick up a black one. If that red was like the Dodge Charger Tour Red, which is my color Charger, and not this kind of burgundy wine color, I'd probably get the black and red one. I don't know. I'm not sure. They're both pretty nice, though. Let me know what you think. Are you going to get one? Moving on, Nintendo over on Twitter had the following that they shared. Target is no longer selling Pokemon cards in stores to ensure the safety of our guests and team members. There's been this upcraze lately of cards, in particular Pokemon, but also, as you can see, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, having some trouble dealing with crowd control, employee safety, scalping aftermarket, both at Targets and Walmarts. So I have heard of other Targets and Walmarts around the country, United States, no longer holding the cards for the time being, which is kind of crazy. I was huge into Pokemon cards back in the day. I have my whole set of all Generation 1 cards still in a nice binder, and I love it, and it's something that I've kind of cherished for over 20 years now, and now as a dad I get to share those with my kids, so it's pretty sweet. So I was big on the Pokemon collecting, trading cards, and before that, the Fleer 1994, 1995, 1996 X-Men sets, Ninja Turtles before that, WWF around that time. Trading cards is pretty fun. It's kind of sad to see that this kind of thing has to happen. I get the fandom, I get the craze, but the fact that safety should ever be an issue over people being really obsessed with collecting cards, come on, that's not necessary. But hey, I can see why Target and Walmart are temporarily cutting down on that. Moving on, we talked about a Donkey Kong rumor from Nintendo, so it makes sense to talk about a Sega rumor. And that is, well, in part rumor, in part some of this is coming from Sega themselves. Sega themselves, I should start off by saying, they have gone public saying that they are looking into bringing back old IP and new versions of them. They didn't specify that we are developing a new Virtual Fighter, we're developing a new Sonic, we're developing a new Altered Beast, we're developing a new Daytona USA. You know, they didn't come out and say that, but there are certain titles that they've mentioned that are on the tables of possibility, and that's kind of exciting to see. I would love to see a new Virtual Fighter compete in today's market from this awesome evolution in tech from when the last Virtual Fighter came out to now. I mean, just look at Tekken 7. That thing's a beautiful looking game, and it's on a several-year-old hardware from 2013, in which the game came out a couple of years ago, but it's still healthy, it's still strong, it's still getting new updates. You know, we just got our Polish Shotokan Karate Fighter about a month ago, and that game's pretty cool. Give me a new Virtual Fighter, exclusively designed for, you know, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch Plus, fully take advantage of PC. Let me get a new Virtual Fighter, but we'll see. That's just one of the names that's being, you know, tossed around as a possibility. The rumor side of this, I should say, is that Sega at E3 is going to show off a brand new Sonic game or games, and that it could very well be Sonic Adventure 3. Like I said, that's the rumor part, is that it's Sonic Adventure 3 or another big name Sonic title that would be a sequel of sorts to some game from the past. It looks likely that a new Sonic is coming out. Whether it's officially shown at E3 or not, whether it's officially Sonic Adventure 3 or not, that remains to be seen. But I think safe to say we're going to get some Sega stuff this year, probably some Sonic stuff, and likely something else shown from Sega's past, brought new again, or a new IP altogether. We'll see. So that's a little bit of a tease, I guess, for now. If I get more, you'll get more. Moving on, it is Thursday morning, so we got our Famitsu sales to talk about. Thank you, Chris1964 from the ResetEra.com forums for putting this together nicely. This is for week 19, 2021, which is May 3rd through May 9th. At number 1 spot, Resident Evil Village. We knew it was going to debut high on this chart. It's the PlayStation 4 version that debuted at 111,171 copies sold. And number 2 moved down a bit, Monster Hunter Rise, with a small drop of 34% from its previous week. Then again, its previous week also, don't forget, was Golden Week, so this drop isn't that bad, with 68,115 copies sold. Number 3, new Pokemon Snap, 46,643 copies sold. You might be looking at a 68% drop, kind of high. First of all, not that bad of a drop, but secondly, you know, it came out during Golden Week, so it came out during a holiday week. So it's going to sell more in the holiday week than normal, so the second week, you know, it's going to be a larger gap in between. So we're really going to have to wait a few weeks to see what's new Pokemon Snap's legs look like. Week 3, week 4, week 5, if by 3, 4, 5 is still hanging in there in the top 10, I think the game is going to have a, you know, pretty healthy chance at hitting that 1 million mark in Japan. And also digital, we'll find out later, of course, Nintendo's report, how the game has done between digital and physical in Japan and, of course, worldwide. At number 4, Resident Evil Village. You can see on the PS5 it did 38,713. Not nearly enough as the 111,000 Resident Evil 4 on PS4, but you got to figure if you're buying the game on PS4, you're having two versions of it essentially, because you could play it on your PS4 hardware and your PS5 hardware. So kind of makes more sense to buy it on PS4 if you're one of those gamers. So not as strong of a debut as probably Capcom would have liked to see, because you add the two up together and you're barely looking at 150,000 for Resident Evil 8. That's a big game. I think the rumor of a Resident Evil title being developed exclusively from the ground up for Nintendo Switch, potentially coming out next year, is really going to be important for Capcom, and will really show third-party developers like, hey, Monster Hunter Rise wasn't a fluke. You put effort into a Nintendo Switch game, make it exclusive for the system, build it ground up, not a port, it's going to do well. Hopefully, right? Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury at number 5 with 26,251 copies sold. Number 6, Momotaro Dentetsu with 18,574. Number 7, Minecraft on Nintendo Switch with 15,942. Up 17% from the previous week. Pretty cool. Number 8, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with 15,359. Number 9, Ring Fit Adventure with 14,547. And at number 10, Nier Replicant on PS4 with 12,223 copies sold. Overall, this is the first time that you haven't seen Nintendo with like 10 or 9 of the top 10 spots. You got Nintendo Switch at 7, PS4 at 2, PlayStation 5 at 1. Look at that chart though. Do you see anything missing? No Animal Crossing. This is the first time that we don't see Animal Crossing in the top 10, but hey, you know, it lasted like 54 weeks in the top 10, so very impressive. The game, we will get the charts later on that show it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's still in the top 15 or something like that. Plus, that game's still being sold digitally, so I wouldn't be surprised if it does creep back into the top 10 as some of these recently debuted titles slowly fall off, like Nier, Resident Evil, and such. And moving on into hardware, to finish off video game news today, we've got Nintendo Switch at 70,000. A pretty big drop from last week, but last week was Golden Week, so you're going to see everything down this week for the most part. Last year it did 42,000, so it is up, pretty good amount from the previous year, 28,000 up. It's now up 240,000 more than last year at this time, respectively. 2.4 million versus last year's 2.17 million. Nintendo Switch at a total lifetime sales in Japan of 19.7 million, very impressive. PlayStation 5 cracked the 700,000 mark this week thanks to its 22,667 copies sold, or units sold rather. PS4 at 848, Xbox Series brand of system, the only system to officially go up from the previous week, was 695 this week, and the Nintendo 3DS at 484 units sold. Yeah, sometime this year, possibly. It has something like 4.8 million more to go, so it might not happen this year, but early 2022 for sure. Nintendo Switch is going to pass the 3DS in Japan, which is really impressive. Then you just gotta slowly hang in there to beat the DS, but that's another beast. But no price drop yet. No other model yet aside from the Nintendo Switch Lite. We're going to get the blue as a new color to once again spike things up. I think Nintendo Switch is definitely going to pass the 3DS, and I think it's going to get closer to DS than a lot of people think. Maybe not beat it, but get close to it in Japan, and I do think ultimately we'll beat it worldwide. Alright, that's going to do it today for Video Game News with Paul Gale Network. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought. We had a lot of stuff to talk about today. We spent a good amount of time in the beginning talking about Xbox and its 20th anniversary. Do you have any fond memories of Xbox? I remember back in the day in the Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine when they had the Xbox shown and it says, yes, this is the actual size. And it took, 2 pages worth of the magazine and it showed how big it was. And I remember, putting my PS2 next to it to see the comparison size between that and that, my Super Nintendo and stuff like that. And that was kind of cool. I also remember I was working at Electronics Boutique back in October of 2000, so around the time that PS2 came out and a full year before Nintendo GameCube and Xbox came out. And we had a really cool metal, shiny, both in terms of metal chrome and shiny green plastic going through it, Xbox little stand. And it was a really nice promotional item that we got from Microsoft to put up in the store, but kind of a funny, and I guess I could talk about this now publicly because it's been so long, but a Sony representative came to our store and said, if you put up any Microsoft Xbox branded promotional material ahead of the launch, which was PS2 time of coming out in 2000, we will drop support of your store. Won't send you any more PlayStation or PlayStation 2 material. We'll change the price of the games and the accessibility to content, and it was a pretty scummy move actually on Sony's part to our basically EB Games shop, known as Electronics Boutique. But yeah, that was a thing. It's kind of cutthroat, because there was also another piece of promotional material that we had to take down, and that was, Xbox had a chart, and it was Xbox versus PlayStation 2 versus GameCube, and it listed things like the total megahertz of the system, how many megas of RAM were in it, how fast it could compute this, how many millions of polygons a second could be shown on screen like this, how many controller ports, boom, boom, boom. And this particular chart favored Xbox in terms of its numbers, because even though Nintendo GameCube and Xbox were comparable in power, GameCube a little more powerful in some categories, Xbox in others, both were understandably more powerful than PS2 across the board. But the way Nintendo had their numbers were, they put like actual full polygons per second, how many true polygons with all effects turned on, and it was a lower number, like 14 or 7 real million polygons a second, as opposed to the other guys saying, oh, we can do 130 million, 150 million, but those just bare naked bones, triangle plane polygons, and that was the bigger number, so that's how Sony and Microsoft advertised their system. But anyways, on this chart, obviously it favored Xbox, and once again, Sony came over, representative said, if you have this chart up, you won't be receiving any PlayStation 2 material, no promotional items for PlayStation or PS2, different price adjustments for what Sony items you get in the store, selling them. And, a store like that, manager and so forth had to listen. So we had this Xbox stuff in the back, including posters and stuff too. But those were the two coolest things. The chart, kind of cool, but that stand, I didn't get to keep the stand. I put it in my request, but unfortunately didn't get that stand. But yeah, that's a little bit of a story from back in the day. Kind of a scummy move on Sony's part to do that. And we actually heard that they did that to a lot of other stores. Not to talk trash right now, but sometimes you have something interesting to share from the past, and that's an interesting story from back in the day. So, anyways, let me know what you thought of today's video. We got the Xbox talk. Even now at the end, it brought me back to thinking something from way back when, one more time. All starting off with the EGM magazine. Let me know if you have any Xbox memories from ever in the era. Koei Tecmo talk. Are you looking forward to Mario or Star Wars potentially? Donkey Kong, do you want a new one? 3D or 2D? Katy Perry, what did you think of that little snip, a little video? PlayStation 5 controllers, are you getting either the red or black ones? Famitsu sales, let me know what you think as usual. Sega, what are you looking forward to from them? Alright, I think that's going to do it today for Video Game News with PGN. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.